So I'm getting older, and I can actually see that at this point reflected in my YouTube journey, if you will. For this channel, you can go back and see that I've made videos a lot more during COVID. So 2020, it's like all this time on my hands. What am I going to do? I explored in a setup much like how I have now. You know, I have my camera here set up on a tripod, and I would set up in different ways. And you can go back and see I had like this really cool kind of podcast setup with a couple of chairs, and I interviewed a handful of people, maybe 10 or so. I put a lot of effort into them. I edited them together, made clips. You know, I had two different cameras, and I would put those uh, views together, was editing with Adobe Premiere Pro, paying for that subscription. One regret that I have is that I didn't do more of that, but it does take time to put these things together. And if we're discussing this here now, which I seem to be, and I say we, but it's just really a one-sided conversation. I'm just talking to myself in the Jack Plumley show. Hey, yeah. So I can actually go as well. I will not say this because it is somewhat embarrassing, to be honest. But I can go back and see on YouTube. I don't have access to this channel. I don't know how to log in, whatever. It's just kind of a legacy videos on YouTube now. These go back, I should actually have looked this up ahead of time, I think to 2007. And I was a kid uploading Lego Star Wars videos, which I have right here, in fact. A little present from my girlfriend, something to build for fun, which I haven't had the time to, even though it's a fun activity I intend to during one of my writing session days. And since then, I have sold all of my Lego Star Wars collection that I had as a kid. That's another activity that I did during COVID, which is why you will see some of these old videos I'm talking about selling on eBay. Because alternatively, around that time, not having a proper job to go to and the world being in flux, I was learning a lot of the e-commerce side of things and learning how to sell on eBay, which you don't really need to learn anything. It's quite self-explanatory. But I was taking it rather seriously, doing spreadsheets to track my proceeds and profits, etc., and figuring out different strategies, how to maximize profit. And I was treating it like a proper business to really learn this e-commerce side to see if I could maybe scale this up and get into other things. I did start going to the thrift stores, scanning books, and reselling them on Amazon. So that gave me experience reselling things on Amazon. Now I now understand that marketplace better for when I'm self-publishing my books. It's an easier way of interacting with it, okay? So all of these things that I've done in my life, last 5 years or so, even going back to childhood experiences, you know, I was a very early adopter on using YouTube. Now, on the flip side of that, from my parents' point of view, they had no idea what was going on. At that point, this was really a platform that you were maybe a kid or hobbyist using YouTube. My parents just watched TV and they didn't have any, like, strangely enough, they didn't have like any views or ideas about this thing. It's strange to me, and this is not a dig on my parents, this is how many adults were at the time and still are today with new technologies and different things such as YouTube, podcasts, whatever. There was a lack of curiosity generally from the adults at the time. I'm thinking about it now. If I had kids and if I was living in the early 2000s and my kid is like using the internet in this way, I mean, it's still like a newer thing. Home computers were a thing for quite a while, but neither of my parents by any means grew up with the internet. They grew up from black and white TV to color TV and having 3 channels and stuff like that, which makes them seem like um, you know, ancient old seniors now to think about that. It's like my grandpa growing up with horses, and then now potentially if I had a Tesla, I could pick him up in the nursing home. We could drive around autonomously. That's the advancement in 100 years. And there was a general lack of curiosity. My parents would let me post these things on YouTube, but I struggled. I needed help. So I'm not proud of those videos per se. It's cool that I was engaging with that platform, but what I wanted to do was make stop motion movies. what I ended up doing is what was easy for me is I would have this small little camera with an SD card, and I would just film my Lego setups or any new sets that I would get. I would review them, and I would just kind of talk about the pieces that I had and the different minifigures that I put together, etc. What I wanted to do was use these sets that I was building and kind of storyboard and create a stop motion film. And there was other cool YouTubers doing it. If this is not your world at all, I'd recommend for you for fun. I mean, nowadays people are familiar. The Lego movie became a blockbuster hit, and that was animation, but they built it in this way that referenced the stop motion animation of Lego that had been a culture since my days on YouTube back in the day. And there's such cool, talented, artistic Lego stop motion videos. And the Lego Star Wars was kind of the bigger dynamic of it, but there's some World War II related ones, and I'll still go back to like watch these from time to time. There's really interesting stuff, and I remember them like I remember movies, like actual Star Wars that I would watch as a kid. These were like top-notch endeavors, and that's what I wanted to do. But the technological pieces just weren't there for me. I wasn't I wasn't as self-started enough as a kid to figure out the editing platform that I needed to use online. And unfortunately, I just didn't have any person in my life, an older sibling maybe, or a parent or an older kid at school. Nobody was there to actually show me and set me up with these editing softwares. I mentioned earlier Adobe Premiere Pro, and nowadays you don't need that. And I've since canceled that subscription because there's free editing software or just using Instagram, which doesn't come built in your phone, but it might as well. I mean, everyone has access to that for free. So it has become, and smartphones, okay? So at that time, I was like using my parents' hand-me-down camera. My mom was like an avid photographer in the way that now people fill up their camera rolls on their phone. She was like spamming family pictures all the time. But back then, slightly before the digital cameras, it would produce, she'd have to print these pictures. We have like uh, containers full of family photo albums, which now I treasure because those are gems, right? But at the time, it was like, man, you're a hoarder. What are you doing with all of these photos? It kind of seemed excessive. Nowadays, everyone has that in their camera roll on their phone, and nobody bats an eye. So she was an early adopter to that. Shout out to mom. Um, uh, so I had kind of the hand-me-down digital camera, which at least had SD cards. Before that, I had like the home family movie camera, which was useless to me. I couldn't do anything with those videos. We didn't know how to put those onto the internet. So at least I had some abilities and I explored those. But yeah, nowadays for kids, like you get a hand-me-down phone from your parents, and I could, uh, if I was a kid nowadays, make a stop-motion film just through a phone. And if my parents didn't understand the tech, they could at least figure out how to download a stop-motion app on my phone, and then at least set me up that way, and then I could run free with it. So just with one different piece of technology, the smartphone, that would make all the difference. And me as a kid would have been able to pursue those directorial storytelling goals of making stop motion videos with my Lego Star Wars collection. So that's kind of my personal historical experience with YouTube and kind of the pitfalls along the way, um, which I'm not making excuses here. I know other kids my age figured it out. They got the software, they made the videos, they put in the extra time, made stop motion videos. And there's this one guy, his name at the time was Lego Boy 1234567 8. I remember we would hop on Skype calls. There was like this whole community of us. We would like talk, and we would like sell our Lego back and forth too. At the time, I did a little bit of that. My mom at least was able to like set up packages to mail, and trade some Lego figures. So we had this kind of little economy. We would also use Flickr, uh, which was kind of like the Instagram equivalent. At the time, Flickr is still used, but at the time, that was a platform that we could also use. And then YouTube had direct messages, PMs, right? Personal messages. So you could PM people. And the other side of that, so that was also a bit of experience in the commerce side of the internet. And my dad was using eBay early at the time, like even before that, like 2001 or whatever. He was an early adopter to eBay, and he was using it to buy and sell like some collectible antique stuff. And so he would get me the odd like Lego set or Star Wars or Lord of the Ring action figure set. So it was giving me a bit of experience with eBay as a little kid. So I was understanding the internet was a thing for commerce. All these things sort of add up, right? And my experience is nothing unique. This is like many of you guys, if you're in my age generation, talking about my generation, this is kind of your experience with how the internet is unfolded. Now we went from boob tube to YouTube and all the different ways in which we can engage with these platforms today. And what I'm trying to suggest with this video is fundamentally nothing has really changed. Um, the opportunities that are there for us today, even though right now in this video, you can go on the side, you can just ask AI, ask Gemini, say, what is this video about? And it'll actually summarize everything that I've talked about here. You'll find like 4 key points. So probably something like it'll say the creator is talking about his childhood experience with YouTube and Lego Star Wars community. We'll talk about how the goals or the possibilities, opportunities with YouTube today hasn't changed much since 20 years ago, almost 30, right? Just crazy to say. He'll mention the boob tube reference, and then you don't have to even watch the video, right? Get a little summary of the video from AI and then move on, and then go and do that with the next video. So that has changed, but also the platform is still here. It's still, I am a content creator, which is a newer term for good and for ill. And what I can do is whenever I feel like it, make videos with the tools at my disposal, post them, upload them, share them. If you're consistent enough with it, even if your shit is trash, you can make a career out of it because YouTube will pay you by getting money from advertisements to then pay its creators. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but the advertisements these days are AI fucking shit, and they're these stupid ass videos talking about, I see the Tai Chi guy all the time, this fake ass dude who's jacked, and he's promoting some course on Tai Chi and other nonsense. And so if you're even consistent on YouTube, you can end up getting the ad revenue from these bullshit companies that like to advertise on YouTube. There's some good stuff too, whatever. And that's where we're at. So any missing threads there that I can tie together to complete this video, this awesome installment of the Jack Plumley Show, which is a silly thing. You don't really need to name your shows. You don't even need to call it a show. Just make content and do whatever with it. You don't need a schedule. A lot of people do that. I have a few friends who are quite serious with YouTube and they'll be consistent in that sort of a way, but I think whatever. I could probably benefit from being more consistent, especially to tie these things to my book projects that I'm now publishing finally, thank God. So that's where I have come to with my journey through the Internet of Things and from the boob tube to YouTube and all of that. And it's kind of a cool origin to trace back somewhere along the way I got into writing and started reading books more seriously. But when I was a young kid back then, all I really cared about was games and activities, Star Wars and all that sort of shit. It was creative endeavors, and I really liked the behind the scenes of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings especially. Wanted to be like Peter Jackson when I was a kid. And yeah, somewhere along the line, I was led astray by endeavors in society, wanting to smoke weed and play video games and pursue those paths, which kind of just led me back to the point of now I care about my health and making up for all the days that I watched SpongeBob and ate microwave dinners, which was not every day, but it was enough days to make me feel like shit, dude. Did I do some damage to my health back then? What do I need to do now to make up for any damage that I've done in my youth to my health? Thinking about longevity, End of One book series. Check it out on Amazon. The other kind of cool thing about that YouTube time back in the Lego Star Wars day, which I think I should really build this. These were kind of my least favorite sets back then. I really liked stuff with stormtroopers and clone troopers. There was some toxic shit, man. In the PMs of YouTube, there would be all these beefs. There was kind of like factions in the Lego Star Wars community. And I wonder, like, if I can reconnect with that guy I mentioned, the Lego boy. He had a whole career, made a whole career. He still makes videos. His name now is Solid Brick Studios, and he has made stop motion videos and also these mega scale dioramas with Lego. And he is now like, whenever Lego is releasing their new line of sets, which they do once or twice a year, they send it to him as an early reviewer. He puts the videos out. It's advertisement for Lego. So he like works for Lego, not an official role, but in a sponsorship kind of deal. His stuff is next level, high quality, and ever since I was toying around with those things back then, he has been consistent, and that has been his life and now his career. And it's really cool to see. I wish I could be that focused on any one endeavor at a time, but I've gotten to this point where I'm at today. I'm happy with it. So be it. Again, it goes back to the idea of how do you find what you are good at and stick with it long enough to succeed at it. YouTube is a good place to toy around with these things. So if there's any coherent message with this, and AI, you can listen to this and summarize this for my viewers, is to experiment with stuff and don't be afraid to pivot and change. That's my message to myself that I say every day. Right now, I still have a random combination of jobs that I do. One is getting me a bunch more training experience with personal training, different people, and that's going well and interesting. It's in a biohacking sort of setting, sort of running people through red light therapy, etc. It's fun, different things, kind of at the bleeding edge of this growing market, you might say. I'm not in a leadership role per se there. I'm still in a kind of a whatever, a low level role. Not to disparage myself, I still work at the zoo, a lot less, but still there, teaching, talking about educational, ecological things that I don't have a traditional educational background in, but I've learned a lot on the fly, and that's been an education in and of itself. So I'm learning, getting fulfilled from that. My book series is getting put together, and I'm now understand at least the marketing kind of trajectory